Για να προχωρήσουμε στην ροή της σημερινής δράσης, θα ήθελα να καλέσουμε την κυρία Μπέτη Τσακαρέστο, αναπληρώτρια καθηγήτρια και διευθύντρια του Εργαστηρίου Διαφήμισης και Δημοσίων Σχέσεων του Τμήματος Επικοινωνίας Μέσων και Πολιτισμού στο Πάντιο Πανεπιστήμιο, η οποία θα προλογίσει μια εξέχουσα ομιλήτρια από το εξωτερικό, και η οποία ακριβώς θα αναπτύξει για το μέλλον της εκπαίδευσης. Κύριε Τσακαρέστου, ο λόγος σε εσάς.
Κυρία Ψαρού, καλησπέρα σας. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την τιμή να συμμετέχω στην πρωτοβουλία της Socialinnov και μαζί να κάνουμε Reimagining Human Connections. It is my pleasure to welcome on our digital stage one of the most excellent personalities from Microsoft, Miss Alexa Joyce. Alexa Joyce is the Digital Transformation and Skills Director in Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Microsoft Corporation. I would like to share a few biographical notes to get to know a little bit about Alexa. Alexa works across the region to drive digital transformation of education institutions and digital skills development from primary through to higher education. She focuses on enabling them to develop the skills that students need to succeed in work and life. Over the last 20 years, Alexa has worked with governments in more than 100 countries across the world in digital transformation. Alexa previously led the global strategy at Microsoft for engaging and support education system leaders as they evolve their school systems, and was formerly a MEA Director of Policy, Teaching and Learning, focusing on supporting national device deployments across the region. Prior to Microsoft, Alexa worked with leading international education organizations such as European Schoolnet, the network of 34 ministries of education in Europe, UNESCO and OECD. Alexa is on the advisory board of All Digital European Network for Digital Inclusion, University College London's Educate Incubator for EdTech Startups, and the Institute for Ethical AI in Education. Dear Alexa, we are so honored and delighted to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, at least at distance. And for once, I hear that the weather is better in Brussels than it is in Athens, which is very unusual. So it's nice, at least from my side, to have some sun. I was hoping to be able to share my presentation, but unfortunately it looks like the function is disabled at the moment. I'm not able to actually present the presentation, so I would need some help from the technical side just to change my status so I can actually show. There we go. Thank you. So I think today I'm really excited to be sharing with you about how we can think about reimagining computer science education. And I think we've heard obviously from our previous speakers just how critical developing further digital skills is in Greece, and whether that's for students or for teachers, thinking about how we get not just from basic digital skills, but right the way through to those upper level digital skills, which enable us to really drive digital transformation in our societies for societal good and for societal success. And so today I want to share some thoughts about this issue and how we can tackle it and how Microsoft can help you tackle this issue as well. So right now, even prior to COVID, we're in the midst of this fourth industrial revolution with widespread disruption of the job market, lots of new skills being required. You know, a few years ago, we would all have cable TV to watch TV in the evening with our kids. Right now, we're all using tools like Netflix, using Uber to take taxis. The digital revolution is fully embedded in our lives and in our work, and the COVID pandemic has only accelerated this. And we see when we look at the job market that this is only going to continue. So despite the huge investments that have taken place over the last 2 years, employers are really saying that they continue to plan to accelerate their digital transformation and to speed up the automation of tasks, which is going to erode the base of traditional jobs that we have out in the marketplace right now. So we have a big challenge to solve as societies and as school systems, which is First of all, we're in the midst of this global economic crisis that COVID has provoked. Lots and lots of changes going on. At the same time, we've evolved towards this hybrid economy where more and more things are taking place online. There's more requirements to work online, and therefore a need for new types of skills which enable us to live and thrive in this hybrid economy. And to be successful in addressing this, we see that the need for partnership has only increased. I think we heard from our prior speakers about some incredible partnerships here in Greece, and we see globally that these are becoming more and more important to enable schools, school systems, teachers to stay on top of the rapid changes that are happening out in the world of digital technology, which are impacting every single student. So we see globally that despite this digital transformation, we still have a big skills gap because there are not enough young people in the Western world who are taking computer science in universities. So this is an example of statistics from the United States. You can see that the traditional sciences like biological, biomedical, engineering, mathematics, all typically recruit a lot more students than those going into computer science. And this type of data is very similar when you look at the data coming from Eurostat, from the OECD, when we look at the European countries as well. Computer science is still under-recruited, and indeed the number of computer scientists coming out of universities is even going down in some parts of Europe. At the same time, we see that computer science is insufficiently diverse. If as many women today went into computer science as men, we'd pretty much have bridged a lot of the skill gap. But when you look at the data, the percentage of female students going into computer science degrees still remains extremely low. So 18% in the United States on average, in the European Union, it's even lower at 17%. And actually we then lose pretty much 1% of those students who then don't continue in a computer science profession. So we definitely have a challenge in getting more girls and women into computer science and to envision themselves as computer scientists. We also see that there is a challenge in terms of the ethnic diversity in computer science. Many young people who come from more diverse backgrounds don't see themselves as computer scientists. There is still a traditional stereotype of what it is to be a computer scientist, which is typically pale and male. And so this also dissuades a wider base of students from going into the computer science studies and professions. Now, when we look at the role of schooling, we know that schooling is one of the biggest determinants in students' choice of education at university level. And so the importance of computer science curriculum is not to be underestimated. In Europe, we've had some really great progress in countries like Estonia, who really led the way in Europe in computer science curriculum. But we see that the situation remains patchy, where some countries in Europe have a good curriculum, some have an old curriculum, and generally speaking, when we look at the data, we see that students tell us that computer science is too difficult, is too boring, and they don't see the relevance of computer science in their everyday lives. The other big challenge that we see when we talk to teachers and when we talk to experts in computer science is that it's very hard for curriculum to stay on top of what the current developments look like. In the tech industry, we're constantly releasing new tools, new technologies, which means that any computer science curriculum in schools, unless it's changed extremely frequently, is hard to stay on top of changes. So when we think about what would an ideal computer science learning experience and curriculum look like at school level, we need to be thinking about curricula that adapt to the fast pace of technological change, that look forward at what the new emerging technologies are and bring those into the classroom. We need to think about how can we widen the appeal, widen the relevance of computer science for every single student. That means bringing in more hands-on education experiences, giving students exposure to what it is to code, to create projects that respond to societal challenges, and show how computer science and AI can be harnessed to solve big issues like climate change, like species decline, and other big issues that we see in our society. And we also want to make sure that it embeds a clear progression of concepts over time that reinforce knowledge acquired throughout the school curriculum. Doing all of this is really hard, though. Let's not get that wrong. This is a great framework that's been created by the Joint Research Centre by the European Commission, which is focused on how do you develop computational thinking across an education system. And it starts with comprehensive integration of computer science as a curriculum from the youngest age through to the oldest age within the school system, with a holistic approach that brings it into compulsory education. Too often we see it being given as an optional or an elective subject, which tends to then reinforce the issue that only a certain type of students will take that elective subject and creates an even bigger gap. But it means really supporting teachers, because if it's a mainstream subject, which every single student has to do, that means many more teachers need to feel comfortable teaching at least the basics of computer science topics. That means following support, getting monitoring of impact, making sure that we're clear about the difference between digital literacy and computer science understanding, and make sure that we harness the grassroots innovation which is going on. We see lots of amazing teachers doing things on their own, using campaigns like Europe Code Week, Code.org to start to introduce computer science topics in their own classrooms, even without having a requirement to do so. So at Microsoft, we decided to develop a toolkit to help education systems and to help schools with integrating computer science teaching and learning in the classroom. It's focused on students from kindergarten right the way through to age 18 and is based on the input and requests that we've had from many organisations across the world to give advice on what good computer science education could look like. So in the toolkit, we put together, first of all, research on what is working, what is not working in existing curricula, as well as a complete map of topics and issues to be dug into by students from right in the beginning of school to right at the end of secondary school, and a full map of all the content that Microsoft can offer for free to education systems and teachers to help them bring in computer science into their classrooms, including teacher professional development. So the principles of the framework is that, first of all, we make available all the resources that we have in Microsoft to help you do this. We emphasize problem-based, hands-on learning to maximize skills acquisition and get students excited about computer science. And we also put all of our project-based learning opportunities connected to the UN Sustainable Development Goals so that students can really see actually technology can solve some of the biggest challenges we have in our lives and societies right now. So we brought this together into domains with big ideas and big questions that students have to examine as they go through the curriculum and develop skills like conceptual thinking, data literacy, and design thinking. The concepts are structured over time throughout the student's school career, and they're reinforced as they go from one age to the next. And we focus in on many key areas which we know are evergreen. They're going to continue to be important in the education system and in computer science going forward. So software development, robotics and automation, data and AI, platforms and cloud, human-computer interaction, and cybersecurity. And underneath, students will get the opportunity to start with machine learning, to begin to build their own software, to deal with cyber threats themselves, and to really start to think about how they can use technology themselves in their own experience. The other thing is that we reinforce the framework with content not just from Microsoft, but from partners, whether it's Code.org or Computer Science Unplugged or others around the world. We also support you by making available some of our tools for free to be used in any school. So for instance, there's a brand new set of Hour of Code materials, completely free, available on Minecraft Education that can encourage your students to start coding. And many people think, well, Minecraft Education, what does that have to do with coding? Well, we actually have an editor embedded in the Minecraft Education experience where students can start to code using block-based coding and transition from block-based through to Java and ultimately get them ready to start to be using professional level tools. We recognize this can be quite scary and intimidating for many teachers, and so we have online self-training, as well as Minecraft experts, mentor teachers who can help share ideas and concepts and coach teachers along the way. But honestly, when it comes to Minecraft, we often find that the students themselves are some of the best teachers, and giving them the resources and the opportunities to use Minecraft education, they start to do amazing things all on their own. One of our other big programs that we have to support computer science is Microsoft Make Code, which is also based around block-based coding and connects to physical computing chipsets. So things like microbit, Raspberry Pi, Ada, Fruit, and so on, so that students can actually start to build real-life hands-on physical projects too. And as students get more sophisticated in their use of technology, we've got an amazing platform called Microsoft Learn, which has step-by-step, bite-sized tutorials, gets them segued into using full-scale professional cloud tools in secondary education. So they can start to learn initial professional level programming, get to use the cloud, and even build their own AI and machine learning solutions. The Learn platform is completely free, and you can easily find appropriate learning paths for students with a gamified experience that gives them rewards and trophies as they go along. And once they accumulate a certain level of experience aligned to our certifications, like Azure Fundamentals, they can actually go on to take an examination and get full certification from Microsoft as a professional to use that tool. Some fantastic free tools for educators to get you able to use that tool within your own classroom. So with this support based around Microsoft Learn, you can sign up as a Microsoft Learn educator and get access to our free official curriculum for educators, which aligns to those issues like cloud, AI, and many more highly technical subjects for the upper end of secondary. That free curriculum includes teaching guides, presentations, but also free training for you to get ready to be able to offer this type of content in your classrooms for 16 to 18-year-olds or even at university level. So what can you do with all of this huge amount of resources that I've just shared with you? First of all, really recommend that you download the Computer Science Curriculum Toolkit for primary and secondary schools. That includes all of the guidance around the toolkit. We also have a free training course available via the Microsoft Learn Educator Center, which introduces you to the toolkit and all of the materials and resources that sit underneath it. We can also direct your students to, even already on their own, start to learn about technology in a professional way using Microsoft Learn and the Microsoft Learn for Students homepage. And finally, if you want to get super deep and bring in technology at high level into your classroom for your upper secondary, sign up for the Microsoft Learn for Educators program, and you'll get access to all of that fantastic material to get really professional skills into your classroom using technology. So I want to conclude there by saying just how important it is for computer science to be something which is front and center for every single student, to help students to understand that computer science is something that can be incredibly helpful for them in their lives, in their careers, and can be used as a tool for digital transformation of societies, economies, and everyday lives. And the only way we can make this impactful in your schools is by working together and cooperating in projects with NGOs, with schools, and with industry to be successful together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexa, for an exciting talk and presentation. I would like to ask you a few questions to follow up on your thinking and on this really, I would say, promising future that allows in front of our eyes. First of all, I would like to have your experience, how we can enhance those collaborations, those co-creative partnerships between Microsoft, between ministries of education, NGOs, startups, educators and students together as a connected ecosystem. I am asking this question as I'm realizing that STEM, and more specifically computer science, is maturing as an ideal for our societies. Still, when we are trying to implement this kind of approaches, in the schoolrooms or in the university auditoriums or laboratories. There are a lot of challenges, and I'm considering how can we bring together this new purpose, this new ideal, overcoming operational or bureaucratic limitations, and how we can move from the good examples to scale up and connect all those results into having, let's say, a successful society.
That's a great question, Betty, and I think there's a lot of different answers to that. I'm going to share a couple of examples which I think are good ones, and these are not really new, but I think nonetheless examples of good practice. So one example which really resonates with me, it's more in STEM than in computer science, but I think the model is an interesting one, is from the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, they created a coalition between the Ministry of Education, the major businesses in the country, any multinationals who were interested to get on board, and schools. And together, this coalition does several things. One is that it gives advice and reflects on how curriculum might be changed and improved. So there's a kind of ongoing dialogue between those who decide the curriculum and those who implement the curriculum, and the the recruiters who need to have specific skills coming from schools and universities. So that's one aspect of the partnership. But the other aspect of the partnership is very concrete and very short term, which is about building connections between schools and industry experts. And so through that, it enables the, first of all, trains the industry side to be able to work more effectively with schools, because let's be frank, coming from a company doesn't make you necessarily skilled to go in and support a teacher or to give even a lecture to a student. So it helps the businesses to really understand what can we offer and how can we go about offering something that's useful in the classroom. But then also supports in recruiting the schools, finding the schools, getting them in touch with people, helping connect to the mentors, helping connect to the HR team so that there's ongoing support. Because I think it's really about making sure that those two levels work together. One, the long-term strategy and having a real strong body in place that can enable that reflection, but also having that day-to-day practical implementation, which really supports schools. So I think that's one interesting example, and I know it's being replicated in some other countries as well, which can be used for inspiration for these types of partnerships.
May I follow on that and ask you? I think I have observed in another talk that you have given quite recently, pre-pandemic era, that you had highlighted this difficulty from academic institutions or schools to draft a strategy and to operationalize all these approaches. For example, even when we ask schools and academic institutions to join great initiatives like the ones we have here, sometimes they're not able to go on with that. So when they're left on their own means and their own everyday culture, they cannot thrive in this direction. How can we somehow find solutions where we give the opportunity to pioneering schools, educators, students, institutions to keep developing and thriving in this direction instead of having setbacks?
So I think that comes down to communities of practice. I think right now, there's a lot of professional development fatigue out there for teachers because they've had to learn so much during the pandemic while also coping with huge logistical changes and challenges every day, every week. But what we see continuing to be impactful in terms of teachers' willingness and readiness to adopt new strategies is when it's peer-to-peer. So thinking about how we can reinforce, widen, scale up communities of practice, bringing together those fantastic mentors who are doing amazing things already in schools and those who aspire to do that, but maybe not doing it yet. And there's different ways of doing that. I mean, obviously in Europe, the e-twinning community is a great example of that, doing it internationally. But there's also opportunities to do that more locally as well, in local language, and to support each other. And now that I think for all teachers in Europe, using technology has become kind of everyday and business as usual, we have a much better opportunity now for really creating digital communities of practice. And then as we can meet face to face again as well, to make sure we have that social glue that gets us connected and want to work together and get inspired and excited. But also make sure that we do have a long-term plan for supporting innovation through those digital spaces in a way that's not just accidental, but intentional.
I was observing another aspect of your talk that I think is very on the top of what we are looking for. Big ideas, big questions, and the design thinking approach, and also addressing, along with these big ideas and big questions, sustainability, sustainable development goals. And my question here is how we connect, let's say, programs and initiatives that are focusing on enhancing skills-based challenges with the big questions, how we reconnect the purpose, the thinking, the intellectual capabilities, along with our upskilling in terms of computer science, digital skills, or any other new skills. So how we bridge the gap between the idea that, from the one hand, is the practical skills, skills-based approaches, versus more demanding intellectual, theoretical, and actually real thinking approaches. So do you have any suggestions for this kind of questions?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I think there's a few things to think about. One is that what we define now as hands-on skills are actually very sophisticated cognitive tasks. I mean, if we think about programming, using algorithms, building an app, those are not the hands-on skills that we thought of 20, 30 years ago, which may have been more simple and required less theoretical underpinning. So I think that in a way, if we think about skills, it's a different type of skills that we're dealing with now. These future-ready skills are quite different. And when we look at the demand in terms of what is out there on the job market, it's not being able to execute the basic administrator tasks which is being looked for. It's the creativity, it's the problem solving, it's the intercultural understanding of how to build solutions which can help people who can't hear, or people who can't see, or people coming from other cultures. So I think right now what we need to develop is actually always a mixture between these more intellectual abstract skills and the hands-on skills. And at the same time, those more abstract thinking issues of the long-term vision of the sustainability goals, for instance, that is the motivator. That's the why we're doing this. And that's, I think, also what connects with young people, because we know in Western countries, young people educate themselves not because of instrumental reasons. They don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to go and do this specific job because I know I can earn some money. Most young people choose a career because of aspiration and what they want to do in the world, what they want to represent in the world. And so those big picture goals are ways to connect and give them the relevance within that way of thinking. So I think we're always going to be marrying the two in more future-oriented education. And that's what also makes it richer and more rewarding, both for the teachers and for the students, to really be mixing those two different approaches, abstract and conceptual thinking, and then the more practical implementation aspect.
Some of my students, they like when they work with SDGs and social innovation. One of those groups, they decided to call themselves Generation S, not Z, and I asked them what S stands for, and they told me Generation Sustainability. So that is one of their initiatives, Generation S project. And one of the discussions we had, how would you like to partner with big companies and tech companies, including Microsoft? And they said they need to learn from us. Actually, they repeated what you've said, that sometimes the students become the teachers. So the question is here directly to Microsoft. How Microsoft learns from learners, from students, either from academia or from the school. I mean, how a big tech company learns from their users, their communities, their partners.
So that's another brilliant question. I love your questions, I have to say. These are wonderful. One of the things that we do, which people probably don't necessarily think about is that as we develop anything for education, whether it's teams for education, whether it's reading progress, whether it's make code, our product designers and our engineers literally go and sit in classrooms with students, with teachers, with schools in specific locations and pilot out the tools with them. So it's kind of almost a co-design process because they're intrinsically involved in testing every single solution that we actually put out at large scale. So I always smile because there's this kind of rumor among teachers that Teams for Education was just, oh, we have Teams Business and we just put education label on it and gave it to schools. It's so far from the reality. It's because we really, really want to make sure that anything we build for education and that we put in the hands of schools and teachers and students is going to be really valuable and really useful and a delightful experience. So we do definitely spend a ton of time with all of our customers across the world trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And sometimes we get it wrong because what works when we trialed it out in Australia might not work when it arrives in Greece. So that's why we also keep constantly listening. Whenever, you know, our education team hears from multiple schools or universities, hey, this thing really doesn't work. What a key part of our job is to go back to engineering and tell people, hey, you really need to change this. Can you help us? So yeah, no, we really try to work as closely as possible with anything we develop in the education space to be impactful locally.
I think you have right now an open invitation, I think, from any other people around that they would like to invite your people to sit on their desks and the auditoriums to work with students. And I have a couple of more personal questions in terms of how you think. First of all, how do you learn? How do you grow? How do you develop? How do you grow? What are the areas that you are looking for readings or new experiences? What is how a person like you is keeping growing and developing and learning?
So I do a few different things. One is that well, I'm still a student, actually. I mean, I'm still studying at university and have almost, I think for most of my adult life, I've been doing some kind of degree or additional studies. I've almost never stopped, apart from maybe, you know, phases where my children were very small and I had to take a break. But I'm genuinely addicted to academic learning. I think there is a huge amount of mental space and freedom which comes from learning new things and being involved in an academic community and in a university. So that's one key thing. And then I'm also I really enjoy self-learning. I'm always taking a little course on Microsoft Learn, trying to do something new in AI. I mean, I'm not trained as a computer scientist initially, and I've taken some of our AI qualifications in the AI engineering path, and it was really exciting knowing, hey, I've built a machine learning model or I've built a chatbot. So that's definitely part of it. And then also just reading. I love to see what's out there in terms of new books, new thinking, and downloading some of those on my Kindle and spend some time getting to grips with those, whether it's, you know, looking at UNESCO or OECD's latest reports, or whether it's something around mindset and thinking about how can we be more reflective and present in day-to-day life, which, you know, I think is incredibly important as well. And then in terms of topics for me, sustainability is one of those key things that never goes away, and thinking particularly about how can we create this green digital future with more democratic participation that brings in lots of diversity of voices into the way that we collectively build our societies to be more inclusive and more egalitarian and more sustainable. That's something which for me is really exciting, and it's a challenge right now we still have to get to grips with.
Alex, I think actually you responded even to the last question I had for you, which is the big why for you, the big vision for you that inspires you and makes you such a really impactful person for us. Thank you so much. And if you have questions for us, also, if you are curious about anything, please, we would be happy to share your question to our Greek participants and to us as well.
Yes, I would love to ask a question to the Greek participants. So I would love to hear what's the most exciting opportunity we have for educational innovation right now in Greece, recognizing we've been through a really hard time during the pandemic. Hopefully we're going to soon turn a corner. What would be really exciting to get to as we get around that corner?
I think we could collect a few answers, if possible, from the participants, and you can see a hand raised. Amelia A is the participant who would like to join the conversation. Please, go ahead. Can we hear? Desi has
yes.
Microphone rights, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm an educational technology expert in Greece also, and this might seems like an anecdote, because educational tools are not exist in the school. And I'm trying to feed the school with my own tools and my own projectors, and all the time we're trying to beg the minister to bring us some projectors, some laptops. And when I come here and I see so much technology that I love, I say, in which country do you imagine that we're going to embody all these things, these beautiful things? You, and not you, but other people who must help us, first of all, to reach our tools at school. Because you say, teachers don't use technology, but they don't have the tool to use technology. First, give them the tool, and then you say, you don't use the tools. Teachers don't use the tools, but they try hard to use the tools, but they don't have the tools, and they bring their own tools at school, and nobody tells them, bravo, you use your own tool and you did a lesson. And everybody says, you don't do your work well, you don't use the tools, you don't. Which tools? It's a truth in a Greek school. After that, I love technology. I made projects. I have international competition. I have been rewarded in international competitions, but it's not enough. This must be to every school, one teacher for technology in every school. I have to support the teachers to use apps. I have people like me who love technology and have knowledge. But you'll say, teacher, use technology, but he doesn't know. She doesn't know how. Put one teacher for technology in every school to support the teachers and to give how to feedback. And so we will proceed step by step. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Any other responses? I think it would be nice if we can post later this question and collect some answers to make a wall of ideas. For example, if you can collect a wall of ideas, I think that would be wonderful. Alexa, thank you so much for this talk and this contribution. We're looking forward to have more opportunities to discuss with you and follow your work.
Thank you so much, Betty. It was really a pleasure to be here and to discuss with you and everyone on the session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.